This is the guy that was on the Sean Ryan show, right? Yes. So he's talking about how he was I guess he was a fireman out there, and
yeah. He lives in Alaska,
and he was saying there's direct energy weapons.
Do you know about you have a lot of physicists on the show, so I follow a lot of that, and so I already knew about the ice cube neutrino detector just from following science channels. Because without any of this,
let's
stuff,
listen to what he says, because it sounds so kooky. Are we allowed to?
That was the whole podcast. I got to find the. I'm looking for the clip. I think.
Oh, that was a whole podcast.
Yeah, I think that.
Okay.
Give me a second.
But anyway, it's interesting because I'm listening to the guy talk.
Here's a TikTok video. Well, this is still 4 minutes long.
Okay, but just give us a little something.
Third-party contractor for the National Science Foundation. I function in a dual-role capacity as a tradesman and a firefighter. My responsibilities required me to be more informed than most of my crew and offered me complete access to the facilities. What I learned from this unique experience needs to be shared with the entire world. The technology at the South Pole Station certainly can do what it is presented as its primary purposes, and unfortunately, much more. The Ice Cube Neutrino Detector is presented as a passive listening device for the purposes of the science as presented. But I'm going to skip right through the chase, folks. I have provided documentation that proves that the 5,160, what they call DOMs, that are embedded in the ice can actually transmit at 2,047 volts each. That gives us a long list of things to consider. It is effectively a multifaceted directed energy weapons platform that I will list rapidly a few things that it can do. Vehicle detection. We're learning that these off-world craft, on-world craft, ours or other nations, are also emitting neutrinos. So this makes the South Pole Station effectively an air traffic control station for this new level of equipment that nobody's discussing. In addition to the ability to detect neutrinos and the exotic vehicles, I have provided documentation that shows that this is also a system for faster-than-light communications. In the past, Gary McKinnon has hacked NASA, found the off-world fleet, the list of captains, and it's apparent that if we have faster-than-light vehicles moving throughout this system, we're going to need faster-than-light communications. This is that facility. Unfortunately, I have other bad news. The season that I was there, 2010 to 2011, we converted from construction to operations and maintenance in both the elevated station and the detector array. Unfortunately, when they first fired it up, that was when we had the earthquakes in Christchurch, New Zealand. There was 2 incidental shots before they were able to target it correctly. This is an earthquake generating device as well. This is the weapons of war that we have to deal with now and what Raytheon's hiding.
Should I keep going?
No.
Remember Havana Syndrome?
But don't neutrino. So if it's a neutrino detector and a neutrino projector, don't neutrinos?
No, they're not
just
projecting them. I don't think.
What
No.
is it projecting then? If it's
It's
going
extreme frequencies, so like ELF and all that shit.
Okay, so it detects neutrinos and then it projects something else. So it has a different thing. It does.
It can be used for many applications.
So the detector detects neutrinos. Right. That kind of makes sense. Like, why would you give But here's the question: like, why would you spend so much money to detect neutrinos in space? But if you say, oh, well, these UFOs emit neutrinos, like, oh, and you can eventually use them, because otherwise you have to be able to track something that instantaneously appears and disappears.
Well,
air traffic control for UFOs makes sense.
The legit, when I watched about Ice Cube when it first came out, nothing with this. It was the reason it caught my interest was, but for some reason, there's neutrinos that are coming out of the Earth and not from space. So I'll remember these little details, and every day is like goddamn Kaiser Soze. I figured out. I'm just sitting there.
I thought neutrinos just go right through everything.
That's right.
Yeah.
But look, I don't know how that
when a neutrino interacts with the Antarctic ice, it creates other particles. In this event graphic, a muon was created that traveled through the detector almost at the speed of light. The pattern, the amount of light recorded by the ice cube sensors indicate the particle's direction and energy. Wow. So I get how you'd be interested in like finding out like the rays from space and what's going on. But also if they're got a dual purpose and you actually know that this can detect whatever these things
Mm-hmm.
are. What do you think those things are? And what do you think that?
What is detecting?
No, the UAPs, UFOs. Do you think that a lot of them are ours?
Yeah.
A lot of them, right?
I'm sure a lot of them are ours.
But maybe some of them aren't.
Where would we get that technology from?
Right.
Where would we get that?
Right.
Because but the Tic Tac thing is so boring, but it's a fascinating topic. Those things appearing back in the 50s, that we didn't invent that in the film. Whatever they first saw them, we didn't invent that back then.
The thing is, like, when you have that guy that first started calling them flying saucers because they were skipping across the sky, like
Right.
no one
saucer-shaped.
had that technology back then. No one had the technology to fly something at insane rates of speed, incredible maneuverability that's shaped like a disc.
And
That didn't exist. So
yeah.
at some point in time, it wasn't ours because we had propeller planes.
Well,
The idea that we had these weapons of war and our weapons of war were propeller planes, that we would open up the bottom of it. It's basically like a reverse convertible and just drop a bomb out of it. That's what they could look down. You could literally, you go, dwee, you would just like figure out, drop it now.
Yeah,
Wee, boom.
we just save a bunch of Nazis just to figure out how to get beyond that, you know? But let's say it's they didn't find, like, let's say they did find something that wasn't us. What, do you think they'd tell you about it, or do you think they'd hide it for, I don't know, 80 years, like the JFK files that are 60 years?